before I start, I mean, I have to say that this is a shared work, and it's a shared work of love. And if it wasn't for Uzrama, I don't think I would have gotten so deeply interested into cotton, who's my co-author and mentor. And I met her when I was doing research on cotton in 2003. I was doing it on behalf of two NGOs, Kalpavriksh and Deccan Development Society, both of whom are into sustainable development. And I was freelancing at that time at 2003, just before I joined the Hindu. And they just asked they put out an email saying, would anyone be interested in researching organic cotton? So I thought it's a great opportunity. And even though the money wasn't much, I actually published a book. They published a book in 2004 called Reinventing the Wheel, Organic Cotton, where I traveled to some parts of the country where farmers were growing cotton without pesticides. This was very significant because at that time, cotton was grown on 5% of the land in India, and it was using 54% of pesticides. So it was a humongous amount, and it was toxic. It was in some places killing and damaging lands. It was killing farmers. But because of the load of pests on cotton, it was, farmers felt bound to use pesticides which they actually couldn't afford. So in the midst of this gloomy scenario, there were quite a few farmers growing organic cotton, and often it was what is called desi cotton, the two strains of cotton that India had at the time of independence. It was about 97% of the cotton growing area was, grown with desi. And today it's the reverse. It's just under 3%. So 97% is overrun with BT cotton hybrids. So this picture that you're seeing on the screen, I hope it's clear, is of the cotton I'm actually growing on our farm, which is outside Mumbai. So I also to grow cotton because having written about it, I wanted to see what kind of a plant this was. And luckily, because of this land, I could actually grow it. And I grew it like a farmer who'd grow it many, many years ago in India. Just throw the seeds and hope for the best. And I got these seeds from Gopuri Ashram in Wardha, where I'd gone with Uzrama to launch our 2 years ago. And I went to Gopuri Ashram, which was started by Vinoba Bhaveji, and Vasant and Karuna Futani now run the old Khadi weaving center that he had set up there. It's a lovely, quaint place, and they've actually revived the machines. I'll show you some pictures later. And he gave me the seeds, he gave me two kinds of seeds. One was cotton from, desi cotton from Andhra Pradesh, and one was from his own tree, his own garden had a tree cotton plant. One of the seeds didn't work, but this, I suspect, it grows every year. I don't cut it. It just gives me a bag of cotton, which I can use for wigs and stuff. If I gin it, if I remove the seeds, which are quite hard. And I discovered that in the last 2 years, and even now it's a lush flowering plant. So the thing is that this is the essence of cotton, that it was a plant that grew with little fuss. But today there's a tremendous fuss about cotton. And the fact that a lot of farmers who are growing it are in distress, and some are even committing suicide. So I just wanted to, so when Uzrama and I decided to write this book, we wanted to bring in two things. One was how cotton was grown in the past, and what was its connection to weaving. So there is no book on cotton growing and cotton cultivation. The reason we wrote this book is also to bring some of these facts which are not well known about cotton to the general public. One is the fact that cotton was a dryland crop, and the second was that cotton was grown and woven and manufactured on a village level. And that is a fact that India was one of the great manufacturing centers of cotton, along with China, of finished fabrics. So that's important to understand and bring to the general public. So in our book, we've tried to trace the journey of cotton in India. We may not have covered all the aspects of the journey, but we covered what we thought was important. This sari that you see, actually a sari. It's a part of a collection called the Registry of Saris, which was commissioned by the very famous and late designer Martan Singh in 2000. And the entire collection of 108 saris was exhibited in Coimbatore in Lakshmi Mills, where I've also gone to give a talk. And it has 108 saris and fabric collections of various textures to show the rich heritage of fabric and saris and cotton that we had in India. So this is our book, which actually describes what we want to write. Uzrama has been working with Daskar Andhra. She's a textile and weaving expert. And what is important to understand is that she also worked with a lot of weavers and the process of cotton. And her venture, which I'll talk about later, Malka, actually decentralizes the whole aspect of cotton production, weaving, and selling. So these were things that happened many years ago in India, before the Industrial Revolution and the big cotton textile industry developed in Britain and also in India. So that's what our book is about, and I hope you read it one day. So why are we talking of desi cotton today? Even though it's only grown on 3% of the land, and not many farmers want to grow it because it doesn't yield much. Though it's a hardy seed. It can survive climate change according to the Central Institute. So let's go back to why we're talking of desi cotton. Desi cotton, India is one of the two centers of origin of cotton. The other is Peru. There is a slight dispute about it, so I'm not going to insist that we are a center of origin, but we well could be. It's a dryland crop. What does that mean? It grows in rain-fed areas. Even today, please understand that 60% of the cotton is grown in rain-fed areas. It's not a crop that needs much irrigation till the Green Revolution and the hybrid cotton that we developed. So the hybrid cotton needs plenty of water. And the irony deepens when you realize that, as I said, 60% is grown on rain-fed lands, and the farmers are growing hybrid cotton, which needs a lot of water and fertilizers. And now you can understand why their expenses are mounting and why they are in the situation today. And you can see that Maharashtra is the lowest net returns for cotton. And Maharashtra is also called, Vidarbha is often called the suicide capital, the graveyard of farmers, and it's not without good reason. So here are some pictures that you can see. I want to speak about Kamal Kishore Dhiran. When I was doing my research in 2003, I'd gone to Yavatmal to, ironically, the suicide capital is also the place where India's first organic cotton venture started. And that was the Vidarbha Organic Farmers Association. In fact, one of its founders, Om Prakash, more recently passed away. But it had very big farmers, and Dhiran was one of the smaller farmers who still grows desi cotton. So he's like an outlier. And I spoke to him recently for a story I was writing. He said, BT cotton is like fair and lovely, but I don't want fair and lovely. I'm growing my old desi cotton. So he's quite an amusing man, and he does his own thing, like all farmers did centuries ago, where they developed their own seeds, they harvested them, saved them, and they didn't pay for seeds. The concept of paying for seeds came much later in post-independence India. So this is a different cotton. Australia is also cutting back on its cotton, though I hear the acreage has gone up recently. But since this is a talk about history, strands of history, cotton has a rich history, and it's unique to India that we grow all four kinds of cotton. There's no need to go into these technicalities, but you need to know that we grew the short staple cotton, which is arboreum and herbaceum, whereas the Americans grew the longer staple hirsutum. The cotton, the longer staple cotton, which is now known for its silky fiber, and that we all crave, that the silky Egyptian cotton, and we also have Suvan, which is a crossbred. But the Dhaka muslin, which is called all kinds of beautiful and evocative things, running water, evening dew, and as children, all of us in India have grown up with the cotton legend in some way. We know that muslin can be passed through a finger ring. We know that Aurangzeb criticized his daughter for wearing a transparent dress, even though she was wearing 7 layers of cotton. So, I mean, if you grow up in India, cotton is also part of our daily lives. Many of us use it to light lamps. We use it. In fact, it supplies 60% of our clothing in India and 30% worldwide, despite the competition from man-made fibers. So, so we still have there is some tradition that we are carrying on. Uh, and much of the cotton, I mean, India was famed for its fine muslins. The great Mughals wore these fine muslins. And you'll find a lot of historical references in history. People who traveled to India, even Alexander's general noticed the trees. Some people called it, the cotton plants look like dog rows. So there were a lot of comments on Indian cotton from the Greek travelers who traveled everywhere. And much of the Indian cotton was actually thicker than you think. In fact, I'm wearing a resist-dyed cotton from Malka, and it's not exactly fine cotton. So there's enough evidence, and even Uzrama has collected and amassed evidence which shows that, you know, cotton is in India, worn by the ordinary people, was often thicker than you think. And if you see Henry Rivet Kanak, who was a cotton commissioner, and his report is really famous, is full of little nuggets. He mentions that, though I don't want to use the word coarse, this was a cloth that was popular in India. So I'm showing you some pictures from the registry of saris, just for you to get an idea of the various kinds of textures that this heritage collection has. This is in a beautiful mill, which is again a very old 100+ year old mill in Coimbatore. And you can see the indigo dyed saris. You can see the fine cloth, and you can get an idea of how fine and sheer cotton can be. And also machine-made cotton. This is from the Gopuri ashram at Wardha, where you get a feeling of that, you know, the fineness, the translucence of cotton. And there were hanks, and this is some of the colored cotton, which I'll speak about later. But also remember that Indian cotton was not only white, it was red. Coromandel Coast had red cotton. We have black, brown, green. And in fact, I don't know if Sushma's here today, but they've revived brown cotton in a big way in Dharwad, where they have one farmer, whose picture I'll show you later, who's growing cotton and selling it. So cotton comes in various colors, not just white. And these are the Ambar Charkas in Wardha. So they source the cotton from local farmers. Some of it is organically grown, and they have a shop which sells this cotton. So, it's like a blast from the past, but it's happening in present, that people are still earning a livelihood from cotton. But the most fascinating place I really visited was in Ponduru. It's near Visakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh. And Ponduru is one of the oldest khadi weaving centers in India. And its factory is just marvelous. It still retains that old charm. And this is one of the farmers who grows a different variety, slightly different. It's called hill cotton. So the Khadi center supplies the seeds and the cotton farmers buy it. And this is the tree Gopuri. And they also, you can see them separating the seeds. Then they size the yarn, that is, add starch to it. And you can see this is also a lady, my namesake Meena. She's removing the seeds with a hard rod. But to comb the cotton, they use the jawbone of a fish, which is found only in 3 estuaries near Visakhapatnam. And they still do it. They still find that fish jawbone, and they use it to comb the cotton and clean it before they remove the seeds. So it's a like frozen in time Ponduru. And it's very interesting that a lot of and they do make a profit. It's not that they don't. And but a lot of the younger generation still feels a little restless about weaving, because it's not exactly a highly paid profession anymore. So they want to go away. But these are the small parts of our history that we have and that we must, keep alive. So this is some of the cotton gins I went to in Madhya Pradesh. You can see how messy it is, and cotton fluff also causes a lot of illnesses. And you can see how unprotected these young people are, but they're having a lot of fun. So just to go back to why England and England's relationship with cotton is very important for our history, because England doesn't grow cotton. And for a long time, this myth, the vegetable lamb of Tartary, was very popular in England, promoted by a guy called John Mandeville, who, who perpetuated this myth that there's a little lamb at the top of the cotton tree, and when it opens, you get cotton. So for years, this myth went around, and cotton was hardly used in England, except maybe for wicks. I think the oldest reference is in 1200 something in a monastery. So, but India and China, we were already trading cotton. Mohenjo-daro already had cotton. 5,000 years BCE, we were already making and growing cotton. The Chhatrapati Shivaji Vastu Sangrahalaya in Mumbai, which had an exhibition of the Fustat cottons from the Newbery collection in the UK. And this is some of the stuff they were, this is a diary actually, but you can see the quality and you can relate to this textile because we wear it still today. So the cotton was being traded in a big way. And you can see the Al Fustat, former capital. All these block printed resist dyed textiles were traded between India and Egypt, and you can still go and see them at the Ashmolean Museum in the UK. So yeah, you can see the different kinds of cloth. It's not very similar to what I'm wearing, but yeah, it is bandhani. You can see again from the Red Sea coast. So these were all preserved and found and exhibited and preserved in museums. But after that, once the British came, as Baines had written, this is Edward Baines's history, it became hard to imagine that India had clothed the world for so many years. And before 1800, India was both the largest grower of cotton and the largest producer of cotton goods in the world. So we had a preeminent place in history that was acknowledged by so many people, so many British historians as well. And to understand what happened to Indian cotton, we need to just briefly speak about the staples. Indian cotton was short staple. A short staple refers to less than 19 millimeters. So unfortunately, the textile mills that developed in Britain couldn't use the short staple cotton. So they looked to America for the longer staple cotton. And America, again, was new to cotton. It got the cotton from the West Indies, and they were growing cotton. And soon Britain realized that they couldn't rely on America alone for cotton. And that's when they turned their attention to India to grow cotton. And that's where, this whole change in the character of cotton from a subsistence crop to a cash crop happened. From 1790 onwards, the East India Company, which was in charge of India at that time, started experiments on longer staple cotton. It started in Malabar, in Kerala, where it predictably failed. And they had various, one of the places where it did surprisingly well was in Coimbatore, which is still known for its longer staple cotton, and in Sindh, and in the Doab. So during partition, a lot of the longer staple cotton growing areas went to Pakistan. So there was a big hue and cry. We had already lost a lot of the biodiversity of cotton with the onset of the Industrial Revolution. So once the American War of Independence and the Civil War, both of them made the British feel that they cannot rely at all on America for supplies of cotton. And Indian cotton started being sent to Britain. And this had a lot of issues. They felt it was not cleaned. Indian cotton was stored in cullies. This cully system was abolished. So little things like that kept happening. People were not happy about our cotton. So it was the first industry to be revolutionized, as Hobsbawm has said, Eric Hobsbawm. And it is difficult to see what other fabric or fiber could have pushed a host of private entrepreneurs into revolution. So for the first time, Europe was getting, instead of exporting cloth, they were getting raw materials. And that had a huge impact on the economy of India. So soon the burgeoning industry in Britain started demanding more and more supplies of cotton. And the East India Company, as I told you, started launching these experiments all over India. And as you can see, they started in Malabar, and several American varieties, the longest stapled hirsutums, were introduced in all these states. I mean, these were not the states then, but in the Bombay Presidency, in the South, in Bengal. And this research was carried out from the point of view of traders and English textile manufacturers, okay? So they even sent Mr. Mercer to help us grow cotton, you know. But as you can read what Mr. Mercer said, it's a useless expense to government, and the American system was not adapted to India. And the most important thing is that the American cotton did not grow well in our soil, in the red soil. So after so many years, the CICR has admitted that indigenous cotton has certain tolerant qualities. But tragically, only 5% of Indian scientists work on desi cotton, though we have excellent varieties developed by scientists, and the world's first hybrid, let's not forget, the H4, developed by Dr. C.T. Patel in Surat. But even before independence, Dr. Iyer insisted on longer stapled American type of cotton, which he felt would suit the Indian mills. And let's not forget that at the time of independence, we had 425 mills in 1950 and 465 mills by 1956. So these mills, from the British mills, the Indian mills, which got the same machinery, were replicating what the British did, and we also had to supply the same kind of cotton. So you can see the Dr. C.T. Patel as a place of honor, because, by the way, no other country grows hybrids, only India does. Even BT cotton is not grown as a hybrid in any of the other countries. So you can see how briefly, I can't go into detail here, but you can see the evolution of cotton from a subsistence crop to a cash crop, from desi cotton to longer stapled American cotton, and also the American cotton, the American bollworm. Why is it called the American bollworm? It is for this bollworm, which didn't exist on Indian cotton, that we have BT cotton, which was introduced in 2002. And there are many claims and counterclaims about BT cotton. I'm not going into that right now. All I want to say is that use of pesticides has not gone down because there are secondary pests. And if you care to see the data put out by the government itself, which we've used in our book, you can see that the pesticide use has hardly decreased because there are white flies for the first time, secondary pests. So you see, when you play around with genetics and only tackle a few of the 100-odd pests on cotton, there is going to be some kind of a natural backlash, which seems to have happened. And this is accepted by even CICR and Dr. Kranti, who's done major work on understanding this. So what is the way forward? The way forward has to come with keeping in mind our history. You can see the seeds, which he showed me. This is another farmer I met who has pheromone trap in the middle. He's also from Yavatmal. He keeps these traps to avoid pesticides, pheromone traps to trap the moth which lays eggs and gives birth to these caterpillars. So they're using all kinds of techniques now. This is from a village, Bodpodan, which has the highest number of, till recently, suicides of farmers. And this is Anup, he's a former sarpanch. He has some 60 acres of cotton and he sustains losses. But whatever it is, they all plant cotton. It fetches them the most money, not even soya bean. You can see the destroyed cotton in 2018. Pink bollworm, you can see the little fellow causes a lot of damage. These are some of the villagers in Bodhpadan who were talking to me about the crisis, how they're in debt, how every year the crop fails, how there are no rains. You know, the seeds of BT cotton cost about 900 a packet. And farmers are borrowing seeds, money just for this. And sometimes they can't repay it. So there is another end to this cotton story. You know, from a glorious heritage, you come down to this crisis-ridden farmers. And then the people who die of controlling the pests on a cotton that is not indigenous to India. So Devadas was one of the earliest people who died, first man who died. These are small and marginal farmers who are spraying cotton on their own farms and on farms of others for 100, 200 rupees a day, and they're being killed. These young men can't see properly because of the, the pesticide going into their eyes. And that year was a very bad year for cotton, but it has revived. Uh, I also want to share with you a map by Andrew Flax. He's from the University of Purdue. He's created a commodity chain story that some of you might find interesting. You can write to him. It's a wonderful map. It's a lovely way of telling a story of cotton farmers in Telangana. So he had got in touch with me to add to his story. So that also takes forward the crisis, which is not only in Maharashtra, but also in Telangana, also in Karnataka, in the north. So the story of cotton has ended rather badly because of the way we've chosen to research, the way we've chosen to propagate cotton. But at the same time, both of us feel that cotton has another future. So Uzrama is chairperson of the Malka Trust. So it's a decentralized, sustainable field to fabric cotton textile chain. It's online. You can check out the website malka.in, and everyone is part of it: the farmers, the ginners, the spinners. So it's a kind of farm to market approach without a middleman, where the producers themselves are the sellers, and they're all part of this initiative. It's like an interesting collective. And another person I met when I was in Gopuri was Arup Patnaik, Arup Rakshit, who's revived Bengal muslin. So it's quite interesting, but right now they're in a crisis. So I would urge all of you who are watching this talk or listening to this talk to please support Arup and his weavers. This is a 92-year-old woman from Bengal who is still weaving, and she does very fine work. So these are some of the, I haven't spoken much about handloom, but it is in a huge crisis, as you know. And there's a move to, people are asking, please buy more and more handloom instead of man-made fibers to support the really ailing industry. And it's a fabulous centuries-old tradition that we have. So this is one of the things that Arup is doing with his wife, and they're doing some good work. They have some fine fabric. So I've given you all the contact details. Maybe this can be shared and you could support them in any way that you like. Udanta is, Sushma Reddy is doing a project in Karnataka. This is, as you can see, the brown cotton. This is the lovely weaving and the hank, the cloth. And this is the one farmer who's growing it. It's just started last year. She's found a buyer for the cloth, and she's going to start planting seeds again. So this is another excellent venture to revive colored cotton. In fact, when I was doing my research in Dharwad, the university did support a Khadi weaving center in Upan Batagiri, which is near Dharwad, and they were doing a lot of good work and exporting colored cotton clothes. But that shut down. But she's, I think, reviving that, and she's found weavers who can weave brown cotton. So it's a very interesting and promising project. Also, Wagad, cotton, desi cotton grows very well in this area of Kutch, and Khamir is an organization which is working with local farmers to produce and market finished goods. So these are all some of the ventures that are reviving traditional cotton and traditional printing and dyeing. Indigo, there's a lovely film made by Swati, who's dealt with how the last few people who make the traditional indigo dye are doing it in Andhra Pradesh. These are some of the Malka fabrics which are made with traditional dyes. And it is an alternative to the present industrial textile mill concept. And it's also making yarn for the weavers. So you get rid of the dependence on large spinning mills, and you don't bale the cotton and destroy. So these are some of the future. You can see the lovely indigo that is being used. So I want to end here. I've given you a few snapshots of what is happening on the cotton scenario in India. There's a lot more to it. There's a rich history, and it's a complex situation that can be understood if you read and go deeper into the areas that interest you. Thank you very much. I see Farooq. Yes, thank you, Farooq. I've finished. Thank you.
Sure. So maybe we can go on to the questions. Before that, I would just request you to unshare your screen. Let's look at the questions. Uh, Tell us a little bit about the volumes that the Malka Trust handles. I mean, is it significant in terms of the overall production, etc.?
You mean as compared to the commercial textile mills? I don't think.
Just how large is the?
I'll give you an idea. They come every year to Kala Ghoda, and sometimes they sell as much as 1 crore.
Uh-huh.
So, and they have 2 retail outlets in Hyderabad,
Okay.
which are really doing well. And plus, they have this online store which is really successful. So they come here to Kala Ghoda, they can make up to 1 crore. So they do
Okay.
have, of course, the production would be limited. I can get the exact details for you, but
Okay.
it is not on par with a huge, and therefore their production costs are high. So the material is a little more, but I think it's because it's naturally dyed. The designs are original, and it's very popular. If you go to, I don't know if Kalagora will happen next year, but they always come here and they're a huge success every time they come. And people buy reams of the stuff.
You mentioned that Desi production is only about 3% of the total. Is it due to productivity or per unit cost or what?
Desi production, no. Desi cotton is being grown on less than 3% of the total cotton area.
Okay.
Very interesting that you asked this question, because in spite of all this great advancement in BT cotton and all that, our productivity is around, it's about half the rest of the world's. In fact, that's one thing I marked out. It was 500 and something kilo of lint, whereas other countries are making double and treble the. So our productivity, Indian productivity, is very low. And especially in Maharashtra, it can go as low as 300 kg of lint per hectare. So we haven't addressed that problem of productivity. It's a big issue. Yeah.
Okay. And how does fashion affect all this? I mean, does it, with this demand for silkier, smoother fabrics, does that also have an impact on?
But when Malka was when I was in the Hindu, I did a nice story on 3 fashion designers who were using Malka to make really exciting clothes, expensive, but yeah, it's not that it's being shunned by fashion. So yes, a lot of people are using Malka, also because of what it stands for, that you're supporting a completely decentralized industry. And I'm not saying you shouldn't support textile workers, but what I'm saying is it's a new way of producing textiles, which has a historic link to the way it's made, to the dyes it's using, to the designs. So it has a USP, I think, which other fabric don't have. Yeah. And yes, Desi cotton, the big deterrent is the productivity. In Yavatmal, for instance, every year the agricultural department traps few farmers into growing 1 acre of Desi cotton. But they don't want to grow because, yes, the productivity would be much lower than a hybrid for a few years. But then I have quoted some studies in our book which show that you're spending less on so many other things. For instance, seeds, for instance, pesticides, water. So, you're evening out in other aspects. So, but then if you have to look at it you have to look at the big picture, which few farmers, I can totally understand that, can afford to do, without support from the government. So there was this idea in Ahmedabad by Kapil Shah from Jatan. He said that all farmers who are transitioning to organic farming and using Desi seeds could use with some government support. We give so many subsidies here and there. He said this is where the subsidies should be channelized. So the farmers are not tense about losing their crop or low productivity, but they're also, they can grow it at leisure. That's one way of starting. That was his suggestion. Yeah.
All these initiatives that you mentioned here, Malka, Yavatmal, etc., is the supply chain very robust?
When WOFA started, that is the Vidarbh Organic Farmers Association, it started and they had a supply tie-up with Japan. In fact, Japan bought the first consignment of Desi cotton. and they did have a supply chain. In the case of Malka, they're doing their own marketing. They do it at various sales. They have an online web store. They have, I told you, retail outlets. There are some people, there are other retail places which keep the Malka stuff. So yeah, so they do have a retail kind of setup. Yes, they do.
So all these initiatives seem to be like individual or NGO type driven. Is the government doing anything to promote, revive Desi cotton?
Very good question. It's not. That's what I was trying to tell you when I gave you the example of the long staple cotton. Cotton Corporation of India, Mr. Agarwal, very kind people. They invited me for this seminar, and it was entirely on long staple cotton, how to revive it. So it was quite fascinating to see the number of textile owners who had landed up from very big textile companies who were very keen on this growing longer staple cotton, which for some reason is not doing so well in Tamil Nadu where it was grown. And we have our own hybrid, Suvin, which is well known for its staple length, but it's not doing too well. So yeah, I don't see any government. And in fact, there is a task force set up to revive longer staple cotton, but nothing for the Desi cotton.
That's quite contrary to the way we should be going to you, right?
Sorry?
That's quite contrary to the way we should be going, according to you.
Exactly. I mean, you keep your germplasm in a bank which was washed away by floods.
Mm.
And I was talking to the CSIR director for a story, and he said they have a few germplasm of Desi cotton, which 3 or 4 varieties that they can revive. And if you go to the market and ask for any seed other than BT cotton, you won't find it. It's very difficult to find these seeds.
I'm going to read the next question verbatim. What is the mechanism, the ecosystem that includes politics, academicians, businesses that works to promote BTC?
Well, you already answered your question. The ecosystem is the market and the multinational companies.
Correct. Yeah.
Which are, China has produced its own seeds. It's not buying seeds from Monsanto. We are the only people who have to rely on multinationals to produce seeds and then market it at an extortionate cost to the farmer, and not even tell the farmer, because it's written in small print that these seeds do well in irrigated areas. This is what the farmers told the Parliamentary Standing Committee on GM crops. They said that we didn't know that the seeds were only good for irrigated areas. And we're talking about Vidarbha. The committee had gone to Vidarbha to understand farm suicide. This is what the farmers told them, that, this is a small print which we can't read anyway because we don't know English, and no one told us about it. Great. Yeah, so it's a very robust, there have been protests against BT cotton, but now we're going backwards. We have a group of farmers who are demanding illegal herbicide tolerant cotton seeds. It's called HTBT. Monsanto withdrew the application 2-3 years ago over this royalty payment, because the government has, by the way, cut the royalty for Monsanto on BT cotton. So they get paid much less. And illegal BT cotton is rampant all over the country. In fact, this pesticide poisoning that I spoke about, one of the reasons is this strange variety of cotton that is being grown without permission. And there's absolutely no regulation. It has been taken up since 2009 in the Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee, which has done precious little. So our regulation of seeds, our control over what is going to the market is really, really very poor.
When a lot of us were in school, we were told that India is amongst the world's leading producers of cotton. Where do we stand now? And is everything that is...
we are the leading producer of cotton. We have been since a few years, because China has reduced its cotton area. China has a huge bank of cotton that it's planning to farm off on the world. It sells it off in little tranches and then skews all the pricing. Australia, I heard it cut back, but now it's growing cotton more and more. But we seem to be the ones growing more cotton, though we have the lowest productivity, as I mentioned. And also the fact is that our cotton, the fact is that we've taken away a lot of the food crop area and growing cotton. Long ago in Vidarbha, Jawari grew on par with cotton, but today Jawari is like given to cattle. And the sad part is also that CICR, not sad, I think it's a promising thing that CICR is now saying that the 5 million acres that have been diverted to cotton should go back to food crops, and we should have high density planting of cotton. This is easier said than done.
So for me personally, the wow was the different colored cotton. Can different colored cottons be used in the same cloth? The
I
early
haven't
questions which came in.
I haven't seen. I've only seen single texture, but I don't see any reason why they can't be used. It's just like you have two hanks you can use as warp and weft together and weave it. There's no harm at all, because
And
you're controlling what goes into the cloth.
uh,
And you.
there was a question. Can you explain about the count size of cotton? What does it mean by 120 count and 80 counts?
That's the number of threads that you're using in your warp and weft.
In your warp and weft, yeah. Another question which came in was, how do you identify desi cotton from industrially grown cotton? Does it look, feel different?
I've seen both. It does actually. If you see the BT cotton plants, they're really lush. I showed you some pictures where, the year I went, 2018 and 17, they were like about 7 to 8 feet tall. Now they're coming in extraordinarily, huge sizes. But normally, it's like the one I have in my on my farm is about less than 5 feet tall. Yeah, they're actually, it's a shrub. It's a shrub. And the tree cotton, yes, it grows and it stays permanently. And this is not to be confused with the same wool, the silk cotton tree. That's different. What's the other question you asked?
How long does it take to grow desi cotton from seeding up till it's ready for harvest?
You plant it, most people plant in May, yeah, and you can start plucking maybe in September, May, June. Farmers generally plant in May and June, and they pluck till about, you're not supposed to pluck beyond December to avoid this pink bollworm issue, but they pluck till March just to get more cotton. Yeah.
So Taiwan lives very close to CIR-COT, so he was wondering if there's anything being done for Indian cotton.
Yeah, actually, CIRCOT has published a lot of data on cotton. I, in fact, have their handbook of Indian cotton, which is very useful. We quoted it a lot in our studies. I don't see, in fact, that was where I'd met Uzrama. They had a lovely seminar on cotton. But I don't know if they're doing any work on desi cotton. I'm not sure. I doubt it very much. See, I'll tell you, sorry?
No.
In terms of research, it's CICR, and I know that only 5% of the Indian, CICR has put this out in their own booklet, which says only 5% of the Indian scientists are working on desi cotton. So, and I think CIRCOT is more interested in the technology and other aspects. And CICR is actually researching and they're doing field trials of different kinds of BT cotton also since 2 years, so that they cut the price for the farmers. Yeah.
So on overall balance, Meena, are you positive or are you bullish or bearish about the future of cotton in our country?
See, I think no point being pessimistic. I think it's good that we have all these ventures, and I think, let's be realistic, this is still a textile industry dominated, and also a lot of people cannot, look at the price of khadi. Have you been to Khadi Bandar recently? It's unaffordable. It's really expensive. So are you making this into a niche fabric? So that's what has happened. From a fabric that was worn by so many people on a day-to-day basis hundreds of years ago, you've now made an elitist exclusive fabric. So everybody wears nylon because it's easier to wash. And only people who have the luxury of looking after their cottons. I know a lot of people who wear cotton, even though they're not exactly multimillionaires. But and still, as I said, 60% people do use cotton. So cotton still has their importance. So I don't think it's going to fade away anytime soon. Okay. And And even if it's not very good cotton, even if it's not hand woven and hand printed, it's still cotton, and people are going to wear it. Yeah.
So you believe cotton will still remain king?
King is not a word I would choose.
Okay, so we are done. In case anyone else has any last one or two questions, they could type them in. Right. Any overall kind of remarks from you, Meena?
Yeah, I saw Caravan's question. Yeah, Surcot, I don't think it's fashionable to do any work with desi cotton from the establishment. So I don't expect that. But we have scientists like Dr. Kranti who are promoting shorter duration BT cotton so that the pest, these are little technical things which may not be very interesting to you. But there are ways out of this mess. But the problem is the seed monopoly, the lack. See, you've taken the ground, you've pulled the rug from under the farmer's feet. The farmer today has to rely on private companies for everything, on the government for everything. So that whole self-reliance of the farmer has been taken away. So there is going to be a lot of suffering, and if you've been to Vidhar, they have to borrow for everything. They don't even have health care. Or even now the government is having mass marriages so that the farmers don't spend on daughters' marriages by borrowing more. These are small things, but fundamentally you're not addressing the problem. And let me tell you, the Maharashtra government was among the first to do a distress survey in Vidarbha. It has mapped each and every family. It knows all the distress levels. What has it done? So you can just generate reports, you can keep on doing stuff, but you need to follow it up. And waiving debt, loan waivers, all that is one aspect. But what is a sustainable thing in the long run? I don't think we are looking at those issues at all.
I was wondering if Bharat is there and if you'd like to make any overall comments. Okay, there is one last question, if I may. Can farmers acquire the seeds from each other instead of buying them?
If they have them.
Sure.
To have the seeds,
Right.
Deccan Development Society in Zahirabad in what was Andhra Pradesh, they call their local seeds the crops of truth because they couldn't find them. Then these women farmers went, searched, they found few farmers with the traditional millet seeds and they revived it. Today they are the source of seeds. So unless something like that happens with cotton, where farmers get, and they are, I mean, in Kutch, they are using their own seeds. Dhiren is getting his seeds from the agricultural, some of the agricultural universities have excellent seeds, but they don't popularize it, they don't share it. So this is the other thing. And a lot of people believe that short staple cotton is good for surgical, those surgical cotton, that kind of thing. So this is how you denigrate your own heritage instead of, promoting it. In fact, there's a variety called Dhanvantri, which Dr. Kranti was telling me, has a very high yield. But the agricultural university, I'm not going to name which one, is not popularizing it. There are many seeds which are being developed. Don't think Indian scientists are not doing any work. They are. The few of them who are doing, agricultural universities are developing. But then dissemination, extension, that's not happening. And farmers also, I don't blame them. They want seeds which will get them more money, And they say, oh, this desi cotton. And everybody is not like Kamal Kishore Dhiran, who will grow it year after year patiently, multi-crop it. The other thing is cotton was always multi-cropped. It was not monocropped, So somebody has asked for a picture of the cotton tree. The first two slides that I showed are of the cotton plants. They are cotton plants and the one I showed from Vasant Phutane's garden is also a desi cotton plant. So you have 3 examples of cotton plants. If the slides are being shared with you, you can take a look.